Lunacy is not a form of personal or public degradation, for it is a lover of the world of unknown politics. Everything's living in a conspired dream of control, a mass conformity, below the threshold of consciousness or apprehension, specifically involving or using stimuli that become effective subconsciously by repetition. The government knows this and uses it against you. We must be aware of the soundness of mind and judgment to see through the iron curtain in front of our eyes so we can question the truth. Whatever is discussed in this show tonight is your choice to believe what I tell you at your own risk. These are controversial topics that have become the great conspiracies of the world. You will hear information that is graphic and can be disturbing to people extremely sensitive to worldviews and religions. So please, listeners' discretion will be advised.
All right.
You're live, guys.
All right.
Did you guys hear everything I was saying? Okay,
No.
so I'm Judas, your host. Sorry there. I guess I had you guys muted. Didn't even know it. This is our 7th show. It's Enoch, the Jesuits, and the Illuminati. All right. Breakdown of last week was the Mark of the Beast, and what we did was we basically had the conspiracy theories outlook on it, and as well as the Christian philosophy on what the Mark of the Beast is. And so hopefully if you guys go back in the archives and check it out, you can totally, see these two ends of the coin in the spectrum here. And, how it, and as well as the Pope. The Pope was also a big significance of the RFID chips that were, being basically influenced and, also a desensitizing plot against society. You know what I'm saying? Well, what do you think, Crowley,
Well, yeah, I think so. Well, you saw the new Pope came out here, and he's all dressed like a peasant or something like that, and he's going around collecting millions of people following him, and he's open to gay marriage, and he's open to atheists making it in, and all these different things going on. So he's a pretty radical Pope, and he's called the People's Pope and all this different stuff, you know what I mean? And actually there's 2 popes going on right now. Because when you're
we'll get into
Pope,
that later,
but
life. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well,
we are going
to
save that.
To it. It's like anything. You know?
Yeah,
You
just
dive
like
down
anything
into
else.
something
We're
and
going to
it gets
definitely go deeper into what it really is, and we only have an hour. But to get off topic of the multiple popes here would kind of take people into a different direction. But that's going to be a different show that we're going to have in the long run here.
Basically, they were calling the FRID chip the mark of the beast, and in the Bible, it does not say that. You know,
right.
And that's what we were trying to point out. Is that
exactly.
you're gonna lay Christian philosophy down on it? Well, then we ought to dive into that, get somebody that knows a lot about this stuff, and that was that kid Enoch, which is really smart. You know, even for a very young age. You know, so
yes.
What do we got for this week?
Well, what we got this week is we're going to go ahead and discuss Enoch himself. It's only mentioned a little bit in the Bible, and in the Genesis, and as well as the Book of Noah, and also the Jesuits and the Illuminati, and how I have theories that basically, this goes far beyond anyone's understanding when it comes down to the Illuminati. I believe that they come from very deep in the past. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into Truth and Socrates' Poison to introduce this week's show. Yes.
A fragment from the Book of Noah. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza was their leader, and said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders: Simeazaz, their leader, Arakiba, Ramael, Kokabeel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakiho, Asael, Almaros, Batareel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapeel, Satarel, Turel, Jonjael, Sarael. These are the chiefs of tens. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments.
Okay. That clip is for a little bit later, but we're going to go into the Truth and Socrates' Poison real quick. Okay, so what we do at Truth and Socrates' Poison is a bunch of philosophical quotes, and the ones that I have for this show is this right here. There's a plot in this country to enslave every man, woman, and child. Before I leave this high and noble office, and I intend to expose this plot. For we around the world opposed by monolithic. We are being opposed around the world by monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, and subversion instead of elections, and on intimidation instead of free choice, and on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has constricted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, high-efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. And that is President John F. Kennedy. And that was 7 days before his assassination. We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. And that was Abraham Lincoln. America will not be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. And that also was Abraham Lincoln. Now the sins of Babylon will be laid upon the fearful, results of enforcing the observance of the church by civil authority. The inroads of spiritualism, stealthy but rapid progress of papal power, all will be unmasked. And that's the great controversy on page 606. Enoch. The reason why I bring this book up is because when I had gotten into the Illuminati conspiracy, I had this epiphany that this has been going on since the beginning of time. People say since Egypt. You think? And I'm like, no, I feel that this goes beyond time. That time that no men of today will not really comprehend. Probably of today, but not of the past. Now, the book to me is significant because of the conspiracies of the Nazis, the Illuminati, conjuring and channeling entities or beings, aliens, evil spirits, gods or goddesses, magic and spells on our music and money. And much of these conspiracies have led people to believe that a government practices these ethics, and occult groups such as Bohemian Grove, or maybe even our famous musicians such as Jay-Z and Miley Cyrus, Rihanna, Beyonce, and etc., selling their soul openly on TV, like we had discussed in the 5th show, The Conjuring. Now, most people don't believe much of this is true, where others know this is true. Maybe that's why the book of Enoch was taken and banned from the Bible along with other books. Now, the book of Enoch is very important among a lot of other books in the Bible. It has become a more practice book rather than just being a book of philosophy of life. It's known as the Enochian magic, and it's used by the occult groups as for this book teaches you the magic of the mind and soul and its capabilities. Now, the first thing that finds interest to most curious minds is the fact that the first few moments in reading this book, it states that this book was written for a far future generation and will be understood by those in great tribulation, and goes into revelations going into detail of the end of the world and the judgments to come of the world. It's a pretty rough read when you think in the realm of a non-repentance or, in a sense of judgment. Now, in the book, it states all things on earth are of God, and how the oceans and the worlds of beasts and all creatures do as commanded of God, but we do not do as commanded. It's pretty interesting stuff when you really get into the depths of the book. Now, in the Bible, it does mention how angels had mated with our women. And it talks of these angels that were the watchers of Eden over Adam and Eve. And these angels were God's top holy angels, and they sought after our wives and daughters. And I got a clip. It's the first one, and it talks about Enoch and the fallen angels. And if you can go ahead and play that now, Denny, in that way that'll make a lot more sense to people as you play it. Thank you very much.
Fragment from the book of Noah. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza was their leader, and said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. Simeazaz, their leader, Arakiba, Ramael, Kokabeel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakiho, Asael, Almaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapel, Satarel, Turel, Jonjael, Sarael. These are the chiefs of tens. And all the others together with them took unto themselves unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them, and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and to drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Armoros the resolving of enchantments, Barakihal taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, The earth, made without inhabitant, cries the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, Bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel has done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Simjaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates, and they have gone unto the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended, and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. And thou knowest all things before they come to pass. And
now, it's a pretty intense read, but this book goes into detail about how they had fallen and begun to have children, and they also had basically asked Enoch for forgiveness. And they want to him to ask for a petition to go and basically ask for forgiveness for the Lord. And basically, the book goes into detail how they had fallen and begun to have children with the women and altered our genes into demigods. They taught us unforgettable secrets of heaven that we were to never be discovered by man. And so in time after the descent, they saw Enoch and wrote up a petition for forgiveness from their father, their creator of God. So Enoch wrote down all their remorseful pleas for forgiveness, and they said, let's hear what Enoch had to say. Now, take in mind, these guys had taught us all of man the fall from God. Now, this is a clip, no forgiveness from the angels. And this goes on about how Enoch sees a spirit coming to him, and basically after he wrote down the petition, and this is in the book of Enoch. And, no forgiveness for the angels is what they had. And
so last week our show was about conjuring. So last week our show was about conjuring spirits, okay, or trying to invoke gods or goddesses, our famous icons and musicians, even openly, bluntly coming out saying that they sell their soul to the devil for fame. Well, I've known of the 13 bloodlines of royalty. The conspiracy theory is that these are the demigods from ancient past. So beings people don't know much before the pyramids, we actually have a gap in history. Well, I've always thought that these entities have been here forever. Well, in this clip, God speaks to Enoch and tells him the Watcher's judgment and what must be done to these Watchers and what their punishment is. So let's just check it out real quick.
Book of Enoch. Before these things Enoch was hidden, and no one of the children of men knew where he was hidden, and where he abode, and what had become of him, and his activities had to do with the Watchers, and his days were with the holy ones. And I, Enoch, was blessing the Lord of majesty and the King of the ages, and lo, the Watchers called me, Enoch the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, thou scribe of righteousness, go declare to the Watchers of heaven who have left the high heaven, the holy eternal place, and have defiled themselves with women, and have done as the children of earth do, and have taken unto themselves wives. Ye have wrought great destruction on the earth, and ye shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin. And inasmuch as they delight themselves in their children, the murder of their beloved ones shall they see, and over the destruction of their children shall they lament, and shall make supplication unto eternity. But mercy and peace shall ye not attain. And Enoch went and said, Azazel, thou shalt have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against thee to put thee in bonds, and thou shalt not have toleration, nor request granted to thee, because of the unrighteousness which thou hast taught, and because of all the works of godlessness and unrighteousness and sin which thou hast shown to men. Then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them. And they besought me to draw up a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. For from thenceforward they could not speak with him, nor lift up their eyes to heaven for shame of their sins for which they had been condemned. Then I wrote out their petition, and the prayer in regard to their spirits, and their deeds individually, and in regard to their request, that they should have forgiveness and length. And I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the south of the west of Hermon. And I read their petition till I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell down upon me. And I saw visions of chastisement, and a voice came bidding me to tell it to the sons of heaven, and reprimand them. And when I awaked, I came unto them, and they were all sitting gathered together, weeping in Abel's-gel, which is between Lebanon and Seneser, with their faces covered. And I recounted before them all the visions which I had seen in sleep, and I began to speak the words of righteousness, and to reprimand the heavenly Watchers. The book of the words of righteousness, and of the reprimand of the eternal Watchers, in accordance with the command of the Holy Great One in that vision. I saw in my sleep what I will now say with a tongue of flesh, and with the breath of my mouth, which the Great One has given to men to converse therewith, and understand with the heart. As he has created and given to man the power of understanding the word of wisdom, so hath he created me also, and given me the power of reprimanding the Watchers, the children of heaven. I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared thus, that your petition will not be granted unto you throughout all the days of eternity, and that judgment has been finally passed upon you. Yea, your petition will not be granted unto you, and from henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity. And in bonds of the earth the decree has gone forth to bind you for all the days of the world. And that previously you shall have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and you shall have no pleasure in them, but they shall fall before you by the sword, and your petition on their behalf shall not be granted, nor yet on your own, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in the writing which I have written. And the vision was shown to me thus.
So basically, there for eternity are bound forever to earth until the end of judgment of earth for mankind, where he's going to create a place specifically for the Watchers. And so that right there kind of confirms my intuitive feeling that these individuals have been here forever. Wouldn't you concur?
Yeah. So this book is like the end of the Bible and also the beginning.
That's right. And
it
like goes
binds
into where
the whole thing together. It's like before time and what time is exactly. You know, because I think before this, man wouldn't even have recognized what time was.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, through what we got taught and everything. Now, also take in mind that that's just a small example of the clarification for me, of the demigods and the spirits that are bound to earth and become the demons. I found a part in the book that actually told me, again, the theory I have is correct even more in detail. Now, an angel is a spirit, not of flesh and man, so there is a law beyond man within the democracy of God, I guess I would put it. And, well, wouldn't you believe that if an angel was real, wouldn't they be all pure and sinless, being a spirit of, a true son of God? And what are evil spirits? You know what I'm saying? And, in the book of Enoch, it goes and actually discusses what evil spirits are, and that they're damned for the world. And, you want to hear what it says, Crowley?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you got that one. Tiffany, it's the evil spirits and holy spirits one. It's a short one.
And though you are holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish, therefore have I given them wives also, that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life, and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you. As for the spiritual ones of heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth, on the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. From the I proceeded to where things holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels, who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels, who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels, who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Sarakiel, one of the holy angels, who is set over the spirits, who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels, who is over paradise, and the serpents, and the cherubim. Remiel, one of the holy angels, whom God set over those who rise.
Now, I think that's pretty important, because it talks about the abomination, how these guys are the angels that are particularly the holy ones, that have a few of them in there, the fallen ones too, and one of them is supposed to avenge against the Illuminists, and that's what it said. And so what does that mean? The Illuminati? The Illuminists? I mean, is this individuals that practice occult magics and understand the secrets of the world? Now, in Enoch, we are just as guilty as them, for we don't correct the mistakes we were taught. Because, God wiped us out, I guess, with a flood. So, we were supposed to change our ways, and apparently we didn't. And we were killed by these demigods, while on the other hand, we're taught the secrets of heaven. So these demons are here to enforce the fall of man, for they have no forgiveness. So why should we? And this is probably why the book was so controversial. So I definitely recommend it, and I have a link on my Facebook.com, and if you're in the chat room, I'm going to go ahead and post it in there for you, and then that way, everybody's on board of getting the information, because that's basically what it's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and post that in there right now. All right. Boom.
Yeah, this is all occult theories and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what the Nazis were doing.
Yep, exactly. Now, who were the Jesuits? Well, I found a small clip on what the Jesuits were. And these people are basically individuals that have infiltrated churches and politics and other particular things. But I have a clip of the history of the Jesuits, which I'm trying to get the message out there as soon as possible for everybody.
History of the...
Yeah, the history of the Jesuits. I just basically was saying I would like to get it out there, and it's a little long. But go ahead.
Get a history of the Jesuit order. We find that Inigo, the father of the order, was born in the Valley of Loyola in northern Spain. Here he was born to a wealthy family. There today is a tremendous monastery to the Jesuits and a magnificent chapel illustrating how much they honored this man and the wealth of that order. The castle next to it is where Ignatius was born. Ignatius, as a young man, was a violent, brutish sort. The police records of the day said violent, vindictive, and dangerous. He was a proud young man and involved himself in many of the sins and evils of the day. He wanted to be a great commander. But unfortunately, in a battle with the French in Pamplona, he shattered his leg. And now his plans for the future as a great warrior were ended. There, while he was recuperating, he read books about the saints and about Jesus. These were fanciful books about the saints, about the miracles and the things they could do. He envisioned Christ as a great commander. And now he, as a saint, would capture the world for Jesus Christ. He had had a nervous breakdown, and this concept illustrated the condition that his mind was in. Now, as a cripple, he made his way all the way across Spain to the mountains of Montserrat. There was an ancient sanctuary there, and in that sanctuary was housed a very sacred image to the Catholic Church. This image was called the Black Virgin of Montserrat. In this church, Ignatius spent 3 days making confession and spent an entire night standing before this virgin statue as a knight in a vigil. He committed himself to the baby, Jesus, and to Mary. And from there he determined to go to Jerusalem. And there in Jerusalem he determined that he would conquer the Muslim world for Jesus Christ. All the powers of Rome couldn't do it, and now he would do it. On his way, he found he couldn't go because Barcelona had the plague. And so he had to stay in this little town called Bonresa for 10 months. There in that town, as we arrived there, we found a monstrous institution of the Jesuits built over the place where Ignatius stayed there. It was a cave. 10 months in the cave, he tortured his body and his mind until, in exhaustion, he began to have dreams and visions. He claimed that the secret doctrine of the Catholic Church was taught to him in this place. In his eye, he saw lights flashing. And he believed that Mary came in the form of a light in Jesus. And he believed that he saw Satan in a spiral of light eyes before him. He believed that he had chased Satan around like a dog with a stick, and many other fanciful concepts, but he claimed that these teachings he received there were the foundation of his entire movement. And here he began the spiritual exercises of Ignatius. These were experiences that a master Jesuit would bring masses through, would bring other people through, to give them the same kind of mind that Ignatius developed through his experience. They were brought through these experiences just like music on a sheet. For 30 days, they were told what to think, how to feel, when to groan and when to sigh, what to imagine, and they were to cut off all normal human emotion throughout those experiences. Ignatius finally made his way to Jerusalem, but there the Franciscan monks told him to go home. We don't want any political trouble here in the Muslim Empire. We've had enough of that. So making his way back to the port of Barcelona, Ignatius sat with little children learning the rudiments of Latin in order to study. From there he made his way to the little college in the town of Alcala, north of Madrid. Here at the Colegio Mayor, he began his studies in theology. While he was there, he gathered a little group of men and women around him and began to bring them through his mental exercises. They would faint and fall aside. They would scream and pass out. Friends, this is demonic activity that this man was involved in, even in his early history. Ignatius was known for the rest of his life for his mystic powers. In Occult Theocracy by Lady Queensborough and Secret Societies of all ages by Heckathorn, we learned that at the time there was an organization called the Alumbrado, or the Illuminati, in Spain. The Inquisition determined that Ignatius had been a member of this occult intellectual society and threw him in the jail there at the Inquisition. Upon his release, he made his way to Salamanca, to the great university there, but again he was brought under suspicion of being an Illuminist, and he was thrown in the Inquisition again. Now, upon being released, he made his way to the great University of Paris in France, and there he gathered intelligent young men around him, brought them under the control of the power of his mind, and these became the basis of his society. Not too far from the university, they dedicated themselves to the new order of the Jesuits there in Montmartre. Today there's a tremendous chapel on Montmartre, one of the most magnificent chapels that we saw while we were in Europe. And it's dedicated to the destruction of democracy and liberty in the world. Ignatius from there made his way to Rome, and in time he was accepted by the Pope. The Reformation had destroyed the influence of the Church in many parts of Europe. In the book, The Ignatian Fireworks of Fiery Jesuits, published in 1667, it's right here in the vault at PUC if you want to read it. We read the aged gentleman Paul III, who then sat in the infallible chair, foreseeing the need the papacy had of incendiaries to vex the enemies to its grandeur, easily grants the petition of Ignatius and his decemvirs, prostrate at his holiness's feet, where after sweet kisses and tokens of their obedience, they received an institution of their predominant sect. From that time, Rome was the center of this new satanic system, the Jesuit order. This is the Chiesa del Gesù in Rome, and entering into it, we get some idea of the wealth and the power of the Society of Jesus. Their death mask of Loyola was made into a picture. We get a view of what he looked like. But the altars and the artwork of the ancient Baroque style, and it's a magnificent structure showing that the wealth of the nations at one time flowed into this order. There's an allegorical statue of the Church destroying Huss and Luther. Another great...
Now, what he was saying was basically in these churches, there's all these statues and monuments, and these are basically pagan symbols that they worship, and they basically get others to worship these great statues as well. Now, I'm sure you caught the Illuminati part in there as well. How deep does this all go with the Jesuits? Now, in time, they got accepted by the Pope and slowly began to teach their secrets and infiltrated the Catholic Church even further. They began to have the ability to change the doctrines of Christ as well as other religious texts and scriptures, as well as leave out and create what they felt was necessary. They manipulate the doctrines of law, of God, and form it into the law of man. And we talked to the Pope last week in our show. It was last week in our show, The Mark of the Beast, and how he was one of the first to accept the RFID chips. They set the breaking foundation of acceptance as well as the desensitization technique of humanity to accept these worldly vices within technology. Idolizing these objects throughout deep, deep wants that become our needs. Now, what kind of power does the Pope have? Tons. He has, for a long time actually, it's been known to be a monarch of religion, as well as have free reins to the Vatican Library. Now, most know, while some know but don't put two and two together, that all the lost doctrines in the world that have been discovered reside in the Vatican Library. So with this in mind, what do they leave out, and what do they disclose to us, and what is the real valid information? A lot of people I have met don't really know or care to think of this stuff, and it's crucial for our future discussions on the show, though. Because when I start telling you stuff you won't believe, maybe having this information will make you question less of the information we offer. Please research this stuff as well. We have the videos and the information you could check out for yourself on the link that I put in there. Now, in time, the Jesuits formed secret societies of levels of acceptance into these individual groups that have their own functions for infiltration. They started to infiltrate the education systems, changing the teaching, the secrets of the world to the rulers and leaders of the world, combining all of religion and magic into one big overture of politics and ruling. Now, St. Francis Xavier was a Jesuit. You probably don't really know of him. It's a history lesson right here. The Pope claimed that he could speak in great tongues, and so he was honored to go to other countries and teach his ways, as well as have access to all the other sacred doctrines of the world. They said he went to India and learned their language and learned all the scrolls and doctrines there. And the Jesuits had been given great power of the world. First, there were only 60, but in time they became in great numbers. For now it is a competition to the top of ranking to become a part of an infiltrating group of elites and true puppeteers of their lives today. Here are some of the privileges that the Jesuits have. The ability to change doctrine and law, will of the church and politics, excluded from jurisdiction. They can imprison or execute all heretics. They are free and exempt from all secular power and forces, taxes, law of judge and ruling of the law of democracy. Free and exempt of all. These guys are free beyond free. Here is one of the sworn oaths. When a Jesuit of a minor rank is to be elevated to command, he is conducted into the chapel of the covenant and of the order, where there are only 3 others present, and the principal or superior standing in front of the altar on the other side stands a monk, and one whom holds a banner of yellow and white, which are the papal colors, and the other black banner with a dagger and a red cross above a skull and bones, with the word I-N-R-I, and below the words is Iustem Necar Regis Imperius, the meaning of which is to exterminate or annihilate impious or heretical kings, governments, or rulers. Upon the floor is the red cross, of which the postulant candidate kneels. And I have a little clip of what their oath really actually has to say. It's a Jesuit oath. It's pretty crazy.
This is the order of induction in the Jesuit system. First those studying to enter the order, the novices. Then the scholastics, the great teachers, the temporal ruling over the houses and the schools, and the coadjutors finally, the agents that carry out the responsibility of aiding in the world projects. Then, and only then, this mass of Jesuits can be initiated into the actual order of the Jesuits, that profess of the 3 vows and the profess of the 4 vows. Finally, after a lifetime of total commitment to this monstrous system, they could be initiated, very few have ever made it, into the mysteries of the Jesuit order. What are those mysteries? I think we're going to find out tonight, folks. The ceremony of induction of the Jesuits is in the Library of Congress, and the card is 6643354. It's an unbelievable admission to the world of what goes on in the initiation of a Jesuit into the profess. The Jesuit order, my son, you have been taught to act as a dissembler among the Roman Catholics, to be a Roman Catholic, and to be a spy even among your own brethren, to believe no man, to trust no man, among the Reformers to be a Reformer, among the Huguenots to be a Huguenot, among the Calvinists to be a Calvinist, among the Protestants generally, be a Protestant. And obtaining their confidence to speak from their pulpits, and to denounce with all vehemence in your nature our holy religion and the Pope, and even to descend so low as to become a Jew among the Jews, that you might be enabled to gather together all information for the benefit of your order as a faithful soldier of the Pope. You have been taught to insidiously plant the seeds of jealousy and hatred between states that were at peace, and incite them to deeds of blood involving them in war with each other, and to create revolutions and civil wars in communities, provinces, and countries that were independent and prosperous, cultivating the arts and the sciences, enjoying the blessing of peace. To take sides with the combatants and to act secretly in concert with your brother Jesuits, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that with which you might be connected. Only that the church might be the gainer in the end, and the conditions fixed in the treaties for peace, and that the end justifies the means. You have been taught your duties as a spy to gather all statistics, facts, and information in your power from every source. To ingratiate yourself into the confidence of the family circle of the Protestants and heretics of every class and character, as well as that of the merchant, the banker, the lawyer, among the schools and universities, in parliaments and legislatures, and in the judiciaries and councils of state, and to be all things to all men for the Pope's sake, whose servants we are unto death. You've received all your instructions heretofore as a novice, a neophyte, and have served as a coadjutor, confessor, and priest. But you have not yet been invested with all that is necessary to command in the army of Loyola in the service of the Pope. You must serve the proper time as the instrument and executioner, as directed by your superiors. For none can command here who has not consecrated his labor with the blood of the heretic. For without the shedding of blood, no man can be saved. Therefore, to fit yourself for your work and make your own salvation sure, you will, in addition to your former oath of obedience to your order and allegiance to the Pope, repeat after me. I promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, condition, and that I will hang, burn, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their execrable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the piniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever they may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I, at any time, may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith, the Society of Jesus. Could they carry out these kinds of monstrous oaths? They can, because of the secret of the exercises. In Boehmer's books on the Jesuits, we read, we imbue into him spiritual forces which he would find very difficult to eliminate later. These forces can come up again to the surface, sometimes after years of not even mentioning them, and become so imperative that the will finds itself unable to oppose any obstacle and has to follow the irresistible impulse.
I mean, think about that. We just heard about the book of Enoch, talking about spirits. These guys are conjuring spirits, doing magic. And these are things that are, like, going on. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, And there's actually, the reason why these guys are so important is because they are the ones that caused the wars in other countries. The assassination of JFK and Lincoln, they infiltrated and caused World War II, the French Revolution, etc. I mean, they've continued this all the way up to the world that we live in today. And we don't even really see nothing spiritually anymore, and it got snuffed out. And at one time, but Adam Weishaupt actually had once taught these teachings again and birthed the Jesuit culture again. And I'm not going to play all these clips again, but because we are running short on time. And what were you going to say, Crowley? I hate to interrupt you, buddy.
We went into the conjuring and belief and everything. These people, you might not believe in this stuff, but these people do believe in this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know, man. I know. And so, when it really comes down to the brass tacks here, when we start talking about, the forces of the world and all these particular things that are kind of working against us, it begins to bring an awakening of, there really is evil spirits that are running the rulers of the world, And basically when you start to look at the
secret societies, you gotta do these weird rituals and stuff. And isn't that a form that's ritual magic? I mean,
paganism,
you're invoking or
worshiping the dollar. And in fact, I have also the Jesuits. One of the Jesuits is the ones that created the symbols on the back of the dollar bill. And there's also symbology in there. So just to find that out, and that they infiltrated the Freemasons. And I found out that the Illuminati is basically a front of its own to guard all these other secret societies of enlightened ones. And so it's basically like the Illuminati's not really real, but it's real because we made it real, they made it real, and it is a real thing in its way, but yet it's just another fault line of the things of how you worship other things, and they invoke spirits. Look at The Conjuring. Exactly. Now, we got 10 minutes left, and what do you say we go into, pressing the issue, huh?
Yeah. Fukushima.
Yep. I hope everybody pretty much got the, the message of tonight and what we were going into. Because in the real, when you start looking at from the beginning and then now, that obviously symbolizes that, we are on not a lateral thing of time, but more of a cycle. And we are hitting that cycle, the age of Aquarius, which will be our next show. And so let's go into pressing the issue.
Pressing the issue.
All right, we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple of recent earthquakes. A magnitude 4.0 earthquake struck off the coast of Oregon, and that was 14 hours ago today. A magnitude 5.7 earthquake has struck Enoch and Amagtanak Islands. It's Amagtanak Island in Alaska, and that was actually yesterday, 11/13/2013, at 12:38. Now, Fukushima, let's look at it like this real quick. March 11th, 2011, we had the earthquake in Fukushima. We just recently had a typhoon hit the Philippines, which body count is still rising. Last was heard on the news was 100,000. Now, March 11th, 2011, we had an earthquake in Fukushima. So we got March 11, 2011, March 11, 2012, and March 11, 2013. All those days together are 2 full years. We had 20 days left of that month of March all the way up until now, adding to 978 days after March 11, 2013. Now, there is 300 metric tons of nuclear waste dumping into the ocean every single day. That's 365 plus 365 equals 730. Since March 11, 2013, we have had a total of 248 days gone by since March 11, 2013. So that's 730 plus 248 equals 978. 978 times 300 metric tons of nuclear waste equals 200,093,400 metric tons of nuclear waste now, currently. Tomorrow, it will be 293,700 metric tons of nuclear waste.
Well, that's not even the biggest thing. The real big thing is like the Chernobyl event. This place is now radioactive. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's already gotten in the oceans beyond one's imagination.
Yeah, but I'm saying Fukushima, the power plant itself, is radioactive right now, right?
Yeah.
So even going in, it's like a suicide mission. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's also a storage plant for all kinds of used cesium-139 or whatever it is, 137 or 139. It's a storage plant for all kinds of that used stuff. So, I mean, if this place is radioactive, and then it's ultimately going to go into a catastrophic meltdown. I mean, this is what's going to happen.
It already pretty much has. I have a little message from the Prime Minister. I have a message from the Prime Minister himself of Japan, Fukushima, at the time. And here, I'll go ahead and read it. It's a part of the pressing the issue. Hello, everyone. This is Nato Kan. I was Prime Minister of Japan. Fukushima nuclear disaster that occurred in 2011. As of the evening of March 11th, approximately 8 hours after the earthquake, Unit 1 experienced a meltdown and a melt-through. All right, excuse me. All right, the melted nuclear fuel accumulated at the bottom of the containment vessels. The next day, a hydrogen explosion occurred at this reactor number 1. Reactor number 1, 2, and 3 underwent a hydrogen explosion, and then a meltdown in reactor number 4 also had a hydrogen explosion. At this Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, there was 6 nuclear reactors and 7 spent fuel pools containing 7 spent fuel rods. Fukushima Daiichi number 2 nuclear power plant is located 7.5 miles from the Daiichi number 1. Daiichi number 2 has 4 nuclear reactors and 4 spent fuel pools. At one point after the earthquake, these reactors and spent fuel pool almost went out of control. Around 3 a.m. on March 15th, TEPCO, through the Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, requested withdrawal and evacuation of its workers. If TEPCO workers had been withdrawn, it would have been almost impossible for those nuclear reactors to be under control. I totally understand that it would be an operation of companies by great danger, and I demanded TEPCO workers remain there to deal with the nuclear disaster. Although their lives might be in danger, TEPCO agreed to do so. On March 16th, the self-defense started preparing to drop water onto the spent fuel from the air. They did this for the first time on March 17th. This was my ongoing response to the nuclear disasters. So in the meantime, I personally reviewed, and I had experts review the worst-case scenarios. As I have also mentioned, there are a total of 10 nuclear reactors and 11 spent fuel pools at the Fukushima, Daiichi, and Daiichi nuclear power plants. All of them went out of control meltdown and released radioactive materials into the air and ocean. What quantity of radioactive materials would be released into the environment, I asked. At that point, the Chernobyl had been the worst nuclear disaster at that point, but Chernobyl resulted from one accident at one nuclear reactor. Now, in comparison, if nuclear reactors and spent fuel pools were to have gone out of control, evacuation from an extremely large area would have been necessary. That was what I was most concerned with at the time. Mr. Kongo, who was chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission of Japan, pointed out to me that in the worst-case scenario, people within a radius of 155 miles might have to evacuate. The Tokyo metropolitan area is within a 155-mile zone. 50 million, almost half of the entire population of Japan live there. If 50 million people had to abandon their home and leave their workplaces or their schools, or if hospital patients had to leave their hospitals, there would be many more victims during the evacuation. Japan would not be able to be functioning fully as a nation for a long time. Japan was close to this extremely grave scenario. The Nuclear Industrial Safety Agency, an organization under Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, was the authority that should play the main role in handling a nuclear power accident. However, the senior members of this agency were not nuclear power experts. So basically it sounds to me like it has reached the worst case scenario. Neither they or their staff were prepared for a nuclear disaster of this magnitude. My view is that the unpreparedness in terms of the physical facilities, lack of adequate policies and government structure made a disaster even worse. Even after having experienced this nuclear disaster, I thought about how to handle nuclear power plants in the context of Japanese and global energy policies. My conclusion is that the safest nuclear power plant means not having nuclear power plants at all. Needless to say, if we think about the extraordinary risk of losing half our land and having 50% of the population have to evacuate, this problem cannot be solved technologically. Also, more essentially, I came to believe that mankind began to manipulate the atom, creating atomic bombs and nuclear weapons, and then nuclear power plants. They created the technology that cannot easily exist with human life on Earth. When I consider future energy positive policy, I am reminded that the human race and all other creatures on Earth have coexisted with the sun for about 4.5 billion years, and the sun has supplied almost all energy on the Earth until today. I believe that future global Japanese renewable energy, such as wind, solar, and biomass, should eventually obtain all necessary energy for them without using nuclear power or fossil fuels. Why are we not doing that now? That's my big question. And when you start looking at this, and I have all this stuff on the link on Subliminal Sanity, Facebook.com, /Subliminal Sanity. We got 1 minute left. I had a bunch more information, but it's totally fine. I'll post it on the page, and I'll even post a video and the link of where I got this information from, so you can go ahead and see it for yourself. Crowley, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm sorry, I did most of the talking, but I love you, brother, and I got you on here for a reason. But I hope everybody enjoyed. Please stay tuned for Chris George next on his second site, NYC. And thank you very much, Denny and Tiffany, DTM Wicked Radio, Facebook.com, DTM Wicked Radio. Check it out. You guys are great. For any listeners out there, please stay tuned for the next show. God bless everybody.
Later.